Hey guys, it's time for the 16th episode of F4. Today is going to be all about tooling your shop. Before we get into anything, we're going to introduce the co-hosts. To my left, we have Dickshant. So just introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Adi Sai. Dick Shant, never mind. From this part of Michigan. Yep. I do design and scouting and stuff for 2D6.
All right.
I'm on it.
Yep.
I was on the show last week. I do machining and mechanical work, and I just graduated from 115.
And then lastly, Alistair.
I'm Alistair. I do mechanical and electrical for Team 4613 from Australia.
All right. So we're gonna go right into this. So we're gonna start out with kind of just a really big list of stuff that every team needs to have. The first thing that everybody needs is safety glasses, because without them, well, first of all, you're not even allowed in the competition without them. So that's a thing, and also you might not have eyes by the end of the season. So they're really important. I think the notes that we did were, as we said, you can get a handful from Google at Maker Fairs, and get ones that fit over regular glasses, which is another tip. There's also the little blocker things. Anybody have experience with those?
I mean, I've used little side shields a couple times, and honestly, I really don't see the point because 90% of the time when I get whacked with stuff, it's usually under or over the glasses because I'm leaning over something. So, most of the time, just getting safety glasses just fit over your regular glasses is a lot more useful.
If you're doing any type of grinding or anything, you should probably use the face shield. But otherwise, safety glasses should work. If you can't afford safety glasses, what you could possibly do is contact another FRC team and they could probably hook you up. And if you're really desperate, I have 2 boxes of safety glasses in my garage.
So hook Dickshant up. Great.
I've got 22, so if you want to come by, if you want to come by my house, I have them too.
I have a couple. And if anybody in Australia, Alistair, how many safety goggles do you keep with you at all times?
3.
Do you have enough to lend people?
At all times.
Okay, the next thing we said that you need is a big tool set. So that's pretty, encompassing. It just one of those Craftsman tool sets. You can usually get them, or Craftsman, really it doesn't matter. Craftsman's just usually the cheaper. We could put up an image, yes.
Yeah, it's you can buy these at any Harbor Freight or Home Depot or wherever. I think I own two or three, and they usually have different assortments of tools. They're also really nice. A lot of times come in custom molded cases and stuff. Yep. So that's good. Okay.
So yeah, I just put up a picture. So this is we probably have one that looks almost exactly like this. Our team. It's really nice not only for in the shop. It's also really nice for competitions, because everything's in a nice case and you could just fold up the case and you have all your tools, or at least everything you should need. But you always have that one tool you forget. But that's aside from the point. All right.
Wait, can I add something to that?
No.
One thing you need to make sure with that is to stay organized and make sure that half of those tools aren't gone by the end of the season. So one thing you can do with that is labeling and things like that and making sure people return their tools.
And a tip with... Oh, go.
If you've got common tools like spanners, like a 7/16 spanner or a 7/16 socket, you can label them, you can paint them, you can put tape around them so that they're easy to identify, and so you know which one to go with for what purpose.
Yeah, and there's going to be a lot, specific sizes that you're going to end up using much more than others, so you could possibly buy extras for those.
Yeah.
We have
one thing that 115 did back in 07 or 06, a long time ago, was one of our members painted all of the metric sets, all the Allen keys in them red, and all the Imperial sets yellow. And the thing about Allen keys is that because they're hex shaped and the hole they fit into and the casings are round, most of the paint actually stays on them. So actually, all of the sets that were painted back in 07 or 08, those are still actually painted. So if you have the ability, painting those is actually really easy, and you should do it, I think.
All right. Okay.
Oh,
so...
McMaster also sells colored Allen key sets, but those are a bit more expensive. But if you have the money, those are good.
Yeah, we have little tape rings around all the Allen keys we can use, and I'm give me the one with the tape, and then I just get a handful of all of our Allen keys with tape, but it's nice. The next thing is a screwdriver set. So this will probably come with your bigger tool set, but sometimes you need those little tiny ones for electrical, and yeah, those those are really nice. Just get like a little tiny set of screwdrivers, so you'll never be in the dark with that.
There's some specific FRC stuff too, like Wago tools and things like that that might not necessarily be in there.
Yeah, but I mean, you can get by without a Wago tool pretty much. I mean, it's really just, it's a screwdriver. It's a flathead screwdriver. But yeah, no, having a Wago tool, like, they're a couple dollars, it is actually nicer. Like, buy one. Alright, so the next thing, we have a good talking point around here, is hand drills. So, there's two basic types of hand drills. There's cordless hand drills and corded drills. You know, generally, you'll probably get more for your buck out of a corded drill, but I'm pretty sure we all do prefer cordless drills just because they're nicer to use.
I think stocking both of them is a good idea because batteries run out pretty quickly, and usually they only supply you with like one battery in a set. So if you buy like 2 sets of hand drills that are like cordless, having a corded drill as well is useful for like when you run down the batteries, you need to wait for them to charge.
Yeah, and I think there is like different qualities of hand drills as well. So like, you know, he says like his, you know, run out pretty fast, but we can get by with like our M18 batteries for at least 2 weeks without them running out and like constant use. So
oh wow,
yeah, so like when you get like towards like, but those are also like really expensive drills. It's like $200 for a single drill. So when you start getting towards the more expensive line of drills, you'll get benefits out of them. You know, they're faster, more torque, and they last longer, but they're also quite a bit more expensive.
There's a certain price where you should probably stop, and where focusing your money more on your robot rather than some tooling would probably be a better idea. Especially like it's not necessarily the best idea to buy those $200 drills if you can't necessarily afford it, right? Just to get like the 2-week battery life. If you have like a $30 budget, right, you're probably better off buying some corded drills from Harbor Freight.
Yeah, and I think pretty much everyone that I know, it's either you hear Ryobi, DeWalt, Makita, and Milwaukee are pretty, like, you know, kind of what people use in FRC for the most part. It is really good to have a drill drill maker that people use in FRC a lot, because at competitions we've had times where we've actually borrowed a battery from another team, or people have borrowed our batteries, and that saved our ass before. But a corded drill, you would never need that. But yeah, Ryobi's kind of the cheaper option that's still like pretty good. Makita's pretty much at the same level. Milwaukee, same with DeWalt. They're all pretty expensive, but they are top of the line for the most part. So yeah. God, people are shooting fireworks. All right. The next thing is a fractional drill set. So this is pretty much just drill bits. Like, this is usually people would just call them drill bits, but Non thinks he's cool. Fractional drill sets. All right, but just a drill bit set. You need it. You need to drill holes to do anything, even put together the kit chassis. So.
In general, I think teams like usually will just own these like by default. Like some kid will have them in their garage.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do.
Everyone has pretty much. Yeah.
We actually only own like 3 drill sets, which sounds like a lot, but then you realize that about like half the drill bits are missing. So it works out to about 1.5 sets. So like usually you have like a full set, and then we have like a full set of like drills that we never use. You know what I mean?
We probably have. Go.
If there's like a particular drill bit you use a lot, for example, we use 3/16 drill bits for doing rivet holes. You can, from most suppliers, you can buy those separately. So you can buy like a pack of 5 3/16 drill bits.
Yeah.
So you only get the ones you really need.
Yeah, at home, last time I made a McMaster order, I made sure to put in the extra drill bits that I used, like 1032 drill and tap sizes and all that stuff. So I had extras of those. And then I think in our shop, we have like 10 1/8-inch drill bits or so because we use those for rivets a lot.
Yeah, so we do the same thing. That's exactly what I was about to say. We standardize on 1/4 hardware and 3/16 rivets for the most part. So we have a bunch of 1/4-inch drills and 3/16 drill bits. So yeah, that's really nice because you will lose that one size you need. And like, there's been times where we've had like a single 3/16 drill bit in our team, and like have been like scouring the box to find that single drill bit, and that's just a waste of time. So don't do that. And tape doesn't really stay on drill bits very well. So.
On the subject of time waste, that's like kind of like a huge thing for FSV teams. I know that for my team especially, what happened was we'd often spend like hours and hours like looking for like specific tools. So I mean, as you get more people on your team and you get a bigger shop, you're gonna need like more of everything, like more spares for people to use.
Yeah.
The other thing is that like if you find yourself looking for tools really often, it's time to like fix your organization method, and it's like start improving that culture.
Yeah. Okay. The next thing is a hammer. Okay, I like to call this a persuasion tool. Whatever you want to call it. It's you need one. There's a lot of different types of hammers that you should have. Like pretty much the standard one that everybody has in their home is like a metal. Actually, you know what? I have a really good picture. So talk about hammers for a second while I get this picture off my wall.
For bearings, you don't necessarily want to hit them with a hammer, right? So you could. This is just like a quick tip. Is like you just use like a piece of wood, right? Put it right on top and then hit it with a hammer.
All right, yeah. So here's my hammer poster. So right here we have the standard hammer. It's like a traditional curved claw hammer, I think is the correct way to call it. Another hammer that we use quite a bit is, where is it down here? A soft face hammer. Those are really nice, like a mallet basically.
Oh yeah, especially if you do a lot of work on like a mill or something. Having a soft face or like rubber hammer is actually really useful.
What else do we use? Dead blow hammers are really nice. And ball peen hammers. Buy one of those. Ball peen hammers are nice. So yeah, I have a hammer poster. Don't judge me, all right?
On the hammerheads, we actually each mechanical student actually has to make their own hammer, too. So
if you need a hammer, or safety goggles, hit up Dick Shan.
How do you make your own hammer?
It's basically completely out of metal. So we get like some basic stock, right? And they like lay it down, and then we get a mill, and they kind of like mill off the edges. It's like really nice.
Wow. I guess that's another option if you're like too cheap to buy a hammer.
Yeah. You can't buy a hammer? Just make one.
I remember one time, like some student brought just the hammer head into the wood shop, and the woodshop teacher for some reason decided he'd spend 3 hours making a new handle for it. And I was like, this is just like a $5 hammer that they found rusting out in their garage.
Yeah, we had one time.
Yeah.
What we did on our Shell Eco Marathon team is we got like an old mallet that like broke, and we like slid it down a piece of conduit, and we duct taped it onto the conduit piece. And then, yeah, it worked perfectly.
I was one time with one of our like big like sledgehammers. I was just like going into a piece of metal to try to like flatten it, which by the way is not that good of an idea. Don't do that. But I was doing it anyway, and the head of the hammer actually flew off the handle. So I went like down to hit it, and then it just tumbled away and like could have hurt someone. So that's why you have your safety goggles on, for flying hammerheads. But yeah, we're getting way off topic at this point. Next thing is step bits. So step drill bits, up to 1/8. I personally have a bunch of them. They're really nice. Just to have on a drill, especially at competitions, because you have like all the sizes you'll ever need. You gotta be careful with them because if you don't stop when you're supposed to, you can have a hole that's it's too big. So that's bad. But they are nice.
Much better to use on especially if you're doing bearing holes, right? You should probably do that on a drill press and not a hand drill, because there's a lot of places where you do need that accuracy, right? So you might mess up the hole, especially at that size.
The thing I like about step drills is that you don't have to switch out drill bits.
Yeah.
So you don't have to like either start with like a 1/2-inch drill or like start with like a 1-inch hole saw or something. It lets you gradually build up to it. And they've got like a chamfered edge on them, so they actually deburr the hole and remove the sharp edge as you drill. Which it's like, I found that like super cool that they would think of that.
Yeah. So
yeah, I really like step drills, but I don't get a chance to use them very often because we actually own all the correct tools and stuff. So
yeah, we were like working on my robot at my robot. We were working on our robot at my house. So we used step drills a lot because that's all I had in my house. And yeah, it worked pretty well. Alright, so the next thing is a tool jar. So we have this ranked number 8 on tools you need, the priority list, but like you really do need something. Like if you just have no organization for your tools, I've seen it. It just ends up you don't have tables anymore. You have storage table things, and you work on the floor. And that's not an exaggeration. That's what will end up happening if you don't have something like a tool jar, a couple toolboxes, shelving, anything, just somewhere to put your tools, so that you don't end up working on the floor.
If your school has a wood shop, what you can do with your tool jar is you can actually organize it so that each tool has its own place, which I find actually it's like really nice to have that, because then you'll always know whether tool's in the right spot, and you can't really put things in the wrong spot. So that also implies an incentive for people to put things in the right place because it's really obvious if you don't put it in the right place.
Yup. All right. Some things with tool jars. Bigger is usually better. Although one thing with tool jars is be really careful because the quality varies a lot, going from some of the cheaper like stuff you'll get at Sears to like the really expensive like Snap-on containers. Between that, there's like a lot of differences. So generally, we like some of the more expensive ones because the smaller ones they'll start it's like with too many tools in them, they'll start to bow and then they won't slide, and then they'll actually break. Sometimes the handles will break. Sometimes the casters will stop like moving. Whereas some of the higher quality stuff it'll be around for a while. So tool jars, I'd say be careful with quality. It's not a hammer. Hammers quality doesn't vary that much. Toolboxes, the quality varies a lot.
So we own Craftsman and Husky toolboxes. The Husky toolbox is one that we use for all of our mill tooling, and that one has ball bearing slides. Those are like really nice. I think if you get ball bearings, like regardless of like, the quality or the manufacturer, it feels really good. But you don't need them. Our other toolboxes, the Craftsman ones, aren't ball bearing. They feel okay, and they've been around as way longer than the team, probably like 8 or 9 years. And they do get busted up over time, like definitely. The Husky toolbox, which has been around for an equivalent amount of time, definitely is not as beat up. But I think if you're just starting out, you can afford to use it cheaper.
Yeah. This actually might be something you might consider putting in some type of investment in it, especially if you're looking at your team for like a more sustainable route, because our tool jar has actually been with our team for the last 10 years, right? And we had a previous one before then that we replaced in 2006. But if you're a rookie team, don't spend the money on the tool jar. But if you have enough money, it's a good idea to invest more in a expensive tool jar that is of high quality.
Yeah, oftentimes people like kind of like want to go for like new tools, nice tools and stuff. But a lot of the time, it's like team health isn't really a function of like what tools you have. It's more of like the quality of what you have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of these sometimes actually come with a new set of tools as well. So that might be something.
All right. The next thing is wrenches. So there's a lot of different types of wrenches. So you're gonna need an Imperial set first. I would recommend a ratchet set. I mean, you can get this stuff from Harbor Freight for really cheap. And this is the kind of stuff, like, unlike toolboxes, that, like, you'll have no problem cheaping out on. Like, a bad wrench is not going to be that bad. Sometimes, like, adjustable wrenches will vary a lot in quality. Like, really crappy, like, adjustable wrenches won't really, like, slide up and down very well. So that can be kind of annoying. But ratchets, really, not much.
If you standardize on your, like, screws and stuff, you don't usually need to use an adjustable, fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you can get ratcheting, there are a lot of like locations, such as if you're putting like the kit apart chassis together, where it's really helpful to have a ratcheting spanner or ratcheting set.
Yeah, socket sets are probably one of my favorite tools to use because like they just go everywhere. Like sometimes you need this like regular wrenches, like open wrenches, and sometimes you need sockets. But honestly, for me, I found sockets to be like very, very useful.
Yeah, there's very few times we use opening wrenches, and then there's also what we like a lot is the screwdrivers that actually have the little square socket adapter thing.
A lot of times those come with the big tool sets. I noticed that. Like wrenches and sockets and stuff all come with big tool sets.
Yeah, so those are really nice. And then lastly, they're the drill bit. I forget what's the correct name for them, but the drill bits with socket heads on them.
I don't know. You can just we own those. We bought like 3 or 4 ball end ones this year. Those are so good. Like they fit in the drill, and then you can spin in like screws like super fast, and there's torque control. I'm gonna find them.
So for like putting together the kitted parts chassis especially, like it could save a lot of time not sitting there with a ratchet, and also save like your energy because sitting there with a ratchet gets.
It's just like a 1/4 inch like adapter which goes from the drill or the impact driver chuck to the wrench, or socket. Yeah. So that's really helpful. Yeah.
This thing. What I found, the one that we ordered was this. I think we ordered the good one. We ordered like a non-name brand one. They're just called ball end tip power bit. Basically, if you just look up the size that you need, like the keywords that I used was hex ball end drill 5/32, and I mean the thing popped up that I was looking for.
Yeah, so, you can buy them at local hardware store. They're not rare or anything. They're nice.
Yeah.
The next thing we have on our list is files. So inspectors everywhere like this bullet point. I mean, you need them. Different size files. We have this really tiny one that we kind of use as like reamers, but files. Buy files because you don't want sharp metal. It's a safety hazard, and you won't pass inspection. So, pretty good reason to buy files.
Also, a file cleaner as well, or a file card is really helpful.
And then you can use them for your wheels too.
You
You can use them to move your file cards after.
No.
No. All right.
Okay.
You got it. You got it. Do I have to explain?
Yeah.
It? All right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2002.
Yeah, 71.
Yeah.
The file card's also great if you're like playing in 2002 or the day when First removes its don't damage the carpet rule.
No metal on the carpet.
Action up.
No metal on the carpet.
Well, we've definitely had metal on the carpet. Oh well.
Just put duct tape under the metal. Metal's not touching carpet anymore.
All right. The next thing is Sharpies. So just buy a really big pack of them because you're gonna lose all of them after your first season.
Yeah, we had got 100 pack at the start of the year, and at the end of the year we couldn't find a Sharpie anymore.
Yeah.
We have a lot of people on our team, so that's pretty fair. I've been thinking of ways to like solve this. One would be like to give a file or a Sharpie to like each member, and if they lose it, they have to like buy a new one or something. I don't know.
I want to do that. This year we numbered our safety goggles, and then I copied down who like took the safety goggles. So like when one number was missing, I'd be like, "You're the person who has a pair of safety goggles at home." So don't be that. That's a little extreme, but whatever. The next thing is a big power strip for competitions, because competitions they apply a single a single power output, but not always a full strip. So yeah.
Yeah, both the places we go to, the safety inspectors hate daisy chaining, which I never understood. Because here's the thing, we have one big power strip, right, that we can use. That one I think has like 12 outlets on it. But sometimes like we need like charge someone's phone or something, right? And then we need like extra power, or like things are far away from each other, so then you need to like use an extension cord. So when we use two like 8-socket extension cords, that's okay, or that's not okay because it's daisy chaining. If we use one big 16 like thing extension cord and we plug in like 3 heat guns, that's okay. And I will never understand that. Like we have used 2 heat guns at once before, and that was okay. Nobody cared. But we're not allowed to like have like tiny extension things to charge phones. In case, buy the big power strip. I know teams that have like 20 or 30 position ones, you probably want something like that.
Yeah, we have like 2 12 lines, and we hide our cables around our toolboxes so the inspectors don't see them, and it works out well. Yeah, because we
not
know
recommended, but okay, that's the solution, I guess.
The next thing is a center punch, and this is something we didn't have until this year, which was a really bad idea because center punches are like really nice, and you can buy them for like $3. So buy a couple of them, and like your drills, your holes are gonna be a lot like more well spaced.
Yeah, especially if you're using like regular length drill bits, those have a huge tendency to wander around. So center punches, like, they're great.
Yep. The next thing is Allen keys. I like the T-slot ones, the ones that are like screwdrivers and have the little T at the top, and you can actually twist from the top. Those are really nice.
T-handles are great, but you don't need them. You can get by with like 2 or 3 L sets. It depends on what you standard is on.
Yeah.
Oh, on that note, FSC teams usually use like socket head screws and stuff. So generally, you're gonna use your Allen keys more than you use your screwdrivers.
Yeah.
But if you're buying a lot of stuff from the hardware store, they don't actually stock hex like socket like screws a lot. So I don't know. Depends on where you are.
Yeah.
Ball end Allen key is really good as well.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to. You can get them in from an angle, and you don't have to align them.
Oh yeah, ball end is like a must.
Yeah, we have a bunch of those. The next thing, which I would have ranked higher, is a hacksaw. Because we use our hacksaw like way more than we should. And it's just a really fast way of cutting basically anything.
Really fast, he says.
There's ways to cut with a hacksaw very fast.
Takes training.
Yeah, no, honestly, this is all part of our training. Okay, this is the trick, okay? You're learning hacksaw training right now, okay? So hold the handle of the hacksaw and the other end of the hacksaw so you can do a nice motion. And then get it as close to the vise as possible. So this is assuming you're cutting something with a vise and a hacksaw.
I don't know. I mean, would you how else would you do that?
What do you mean? You can cut it something on like a robot with a hacksaw.
Oh, good point. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, like try to get the hacksaw, like, start the cut as close as possible to the vise, like just before touching it. And the closer you are, the easier and the faster you'll to cut.
And when you're cutting it, also look to get like on the ends of the blades, not necessarily in the center, because the center is usually a bit more blunt than the sides are usually. The ends of the blades are actually most often a bit sharper. On 226, we actually make all our students, when they're making their hammers, do everything with a hacksaw, so that's like good experience. And also, if you're doing it on your robot, it's probably much safer to do it with a hacksaw rather than to botch something off trying to do it with like a jigsaw or something like that.
Okay, it's bad, but honestly, half the time when we're cutting something on a robot, we just pull out the Sawzall. We're just like holding it to, and the entire robot's just like shaking. It's terrible. Don't do that, but we do.
On some hacksaws, it does pay to get a really nice one. Like the Starrett hacksaw handles are very rigid, and I highly recommend them because that's what I use whenever I need to cut like any like kind of steel. Because the situation I'm in is like kind of like a weird situation. So we can use the woodshop's bandsaw to cut things. We have to switch out the blade for a different blade. But sometimes we need to cut like small amounts of steel or something, right? And the bandsaw takes a long time on steel anyway, so I have to hacksaw it. So basically, on multiple occasions, I've had to hacksaw a 1 1/4 inch steel rod, so that way I can machine it. And in those situations, the Starrett hacksaw handle is like super helpful. It's like $20. It's like the cheapest Starrett thing that there is, and it's the best. Highly recommend it. It's like,
yeah, there's some tools like hacksaw. Just buy the nicer one. It'll save you in the long run. And we're talking there between like $10 and $20. Just like
literally
spend the $20.
I own the $10 hacksaws, and honestly, I dream of using the Starrett. Okay, it's so much nicer.
A dream of that $20 hacksaw. Yeah. The next thing is a Dremel. So I like to call these disposable tools. Because we burned out so many.
How? We've had the same tool for years.
I don't know how. We're professionals, all right. Just
are you using Dremel, or are you using like off-brand?
No. We're using Dremels, like the real brand Dremels, and we've gone through at least 5.
No, that's probably because they don't have like the other main tools. So like the Dremel becomes like.
Well, people like. Okay, I killed a Dremel just in our shop modding computers. Okay, so that's a problem. Don't let people mod computers in your shop, otherwise they're gonna break Dremels. Yeah, we've also broken stuff like cutting pieces of Lexan, where we should have been using like a bandsaw or like a table.
Oh no, we've done that too. I think everyone does that at some point. Cutting Lexan at the table.
We've done that. We've broken stuff.
One attachment that was like really useful for that this year in particular was like it's like this little like 1/8 inch end mill thing. It has like 6 flukes or something. Great tool. It's way more suited to plastic cutting than the little abrasive discs that you usually see on them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just great. Go with get the 1/8 inch end mill bits. They're like usually only a few dollars anyway. Really good for Dremels if you're doing plastics or wood or anything that's not metal.
There's also I really like the little the head where you could actually hang the Dremel up and then have the little like snake cord and then a little tiny head. It's a lot easier to like hold and a lot safer to hold than the big giant Dremel, and then you don't have the fan spinning into you, like all the hot air hitting you and stuff. They're really nice and they're like $5, so just like buy one of those things. And an extra tightening wrench is also really nice because again that's something you probably will lose, and then you're gonna need that little adjustable wrench I talked about earlier, and it's gonna be really annoying. So yeah. Yes. Okay. The next thing is a jigsaw or a reciprocating saw, aka a Sawzall, which is a brand, but who cares? And yeah, these probably I don't know if I would call these like the same. I think we use them for different purposes because like jigsaws are a lot less like scary than Sawzalls. They like make cleaner cuts. They're really nice for cutting angles in wood and stuff. Yeah. Like making the goals this year without a jigsaw would be really bad, like really annoying.
Yeah.
A reciprocating saw is good if you want to use sheet material, but you want to make it straight cuts because the blades are a lot wider, which means you can like make this. You can do like a short straight cut better.
Not necessarily. I'm not 100% like sure about that because using that on our team, unless you're like really experienced, with the reciprocating saw, you tend to wander a bit as well.
A bit.
I think with a jigsaw, it's easier to get it online.
They're a lot lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But-
I've used both. The Sawzall / reciprocating saw is like impossible to control. What we used it for was like cutting tables in half. Or no, it was like for like the tech challenge or something. We were like disassembling some like wooden parts, and basically we had to cut a table in half. You can't make a straight cut with reciprocating saw. Like for me, it was just so difficult.
No, okay, so here's the thing. Reciprocating saws are like, okay, you need like extensive training, alright, to cut straight like lines with them. And a lot of times people get really scared using them. Like, there's only like a couple people on our team that even like will use it. Like, I'll ask the freshmen who used it, and they'll just like look at it and be like, "Sure, that's for like making robots. It looks like a murder like weapon." I'm like, "Yeah, it could be used for either." Like, they are scary. So like sometimes like I could probably make a straighter cut with a reciprocating saw because like I've had my extensive training with my reciprocating saw, but like
With body parts.
for most people, like a jigsaw is probably gonna be straighter. But like reciprocating saws are like a lot more powerful. They'll go through like material a lot quicker. So yeah. The next thing is a deburring tool. And get 2 of them because you'll lose one. Don't know where all these lost tools are going, but they're somewhere. And yeah, deburring tools are nice. Next thing is a scribe. A sharp pointy thing apparently is the correct name for it. And yeah, just a little pointy thing to like make out lines. I don't know. I don't even know if we have one. The next thing is a tap set. So we like really haven't extensively tapped holes ever, but tapping holes like allows for stuff like there's just certain things you cannot do without tapping. Like
Yeah.
and yeah, just like I try to get around tapping for the most part. But there are definitely times where I'm like, yeah, there's no other way to do it. It's like just tap it.
Especially with the new Thunder Hex, because it has the .201 inch hole in the center. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's the perfect tap size for 4 to 20. So we did find ourselves tapping those a couple times. And the thing about tapping is that it's really good to get practice before like trying to do it on a robot, because like I can almost guarantee you that you're gonna screw up your first tap because it's very difficult to get it started exactly straight,
Yeah.
and that's important when using a tap.
Like Versatile Planetaries too, they're actually pre-tapped, but they're not pre-tapped all the way through. So like if you're like us and you do cut like your Versatile Planetary shafts shorter, you're gonna need it, and it already has the right hole size to tap.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, we've also tapped like spools to put on like washers to hold down like wire and like webbing and stuff, and there's just really no other way to do that well. So
Especially if you're inexperienced, you should probably get a couple extra on the size you use most often, because you're probably gonna find yourself breaking a couple of those.
yeah, taps break a lot. Use 3-in-1 oil as well. Don't try to do it dry, otherwise your life's gonna suck. But yeah, you're gonna break a few. So
If you're tapping aluminum, I've had good success with just using WD-40 because apparently that's really good for aluminum tapping.
all right.
I don't know about that. I just use it and I get tapped holes. Depends.
Great. The next thing is a heat gun. So this is nice for a few things. So, one for electrical. We're not really talking about electricals too much in this episode, but like a heat gun for heat shrink is like really nice. A lot of heat guns also have a cooling setting, which is also nice for electrical with like soldering. So yeah, heat guns are awesome. But for mechanical usage, they're really nice for plastic bending. So sometimes people make little jigs where they'll have like a piece of wood and they'll like sandwich the Lexan so that they can get a nice straight line across it, and then they bend it over the piece of wood. We have like something that's actually made for bending plastic. I forget what it's called. It has like a wire, like a hot wire down.
Yeah. You can make those yourself. So if you
Yeah.
use like this thing, I think it's called nichrome wire, and you just put a voltage through it, then it heats up to like a pretty specific temperature. The one that we has basically has like a small aluminum C channel, sort of like this, and then the wire runs straight through that. You can lay a piece of plastic right on top, and then the wire will heat up the plastic just along the line, and you can bend it. Those are really useful. We use those a few times this year.
Yeah, so those are really nice because I mean you could do a good bend with just like a heat gun, but like it's a lot more difficult. We've had success also. This is really specific. So if you have a finger brake, putting it in the finger brake first so that the heat doesn't really get past the fingers, and then bending on the finger brake. So that works. But I don't know why you would have a finger brake and not like one of those wire things. I guess you could. The next thing is look for wired versions. Is this like for everything? Does anybody?
I think we touched upon that earlier.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. We're like, okay. So yeah, this is just the end of the hand tool thing. So yeah, for all hand tools, look for wired versions if you have a low budget. Generally, they will be more powerful. There's some things you just straight up just don't need to spend the extra on wireless. Don't buy a wireless Dremel. Also, that's one thing. Like wireless is not better because they are actually significantly less powerful. So yeah, buy a wired Dremel. But then like stuff like jigsaws and circular saws, like you could totally go for wireless, but like you don't need to at all. Yeah. And what can you cheap out on? Well, you can cheap out on wrenches. Okay, you don't need to go to Snap-on or like what's some other like really expensive like auto. Like you don't need the auto dealership like top quality stuff. Like no, just get like a cheap box of wrenches. Screwdrivers usually there are some instances where you can get a really crappy screwdriver.
Yeah.
But like
usually the screw breaks before the screwdriver in my experience.
Yeah, you could also I've seen like times where like with crappy screwdrivers the head will actually like it's not really that big of a problem with flathead, but with Phillips head the head will start to strip, which is annoying. But screwdrivers for the most part you don't need to spend a ton of money. Hammers, Harbor Freight for like non-electrical cutting tools isn't bad. Communal tooling, like is that like stealing stuff from your school or stuff?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, like okay, so
like students.
Yeah, so if you have like no money at all, like you're a rookie team, like your budget's like $10 and you need to spend that on an Andy Mark order, like you probably have enough students that have tools at their house that they can bring in and would be willing to.
Yeah.
So like that's a thing. And then like I know like a lot of my tools like are actually at our shop. They just happen to like end up there, even though we don't need them. Like there's been that time where like we've like been low on drills, so I just like ran home and got mine.
Our mentor does that like a lot. His car is basically like filled with just like robotics tools that we ask to borrow occasionally.
Yeah, nice.
I'm not sure what else he uses his like car full of tools for, but I'm pretty sure it's just for robotics.
Having tools in your car is not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Okay, so the next thing that we haven't talked about is measuring tools. So you know you could probably get by without anything but a tape measure, but you don't want just a tape measure.
Yeah,
so,
like usually like tape measure, combination square, and like a cheap digital caliper. That's like basically what you need to do anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like a metal ruler if you're like really into it. I don't know.
I don't even think you need the digital caliper. You can get by without that. But like,
think about that. But
if you want to get pretty accurate, you should probably have a digital.
And a decent set of calipers allows you to check like drill bit sizes as well.
yes.
Yeah, size was what we used our like cheapo, fractional only digital caliper for this year, and that was a good purchase, I think.
And actually, funny thing with calipers is Inventables gives a PDV a voucher every year for first teams, and they sell calipers. And every year we just buy calipers from them. So yeah, like do that. Because I mean I don't know what else from Inventables you're gonna get other than like a CNC router. But yeah. The next thing is vernier calipers or dial calipers.
That's just specifics.
Yeah. So a lot of people use digital ones. We have a couple of pairs of vernier calipers. We don't have any dial ones.
Do you have vernier or dial? Because vernier is one. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know why. I think our mentor bought them like a while ago. They're really nice too. We have one pair of vernier calipers that are like $200.
That's like wasted on FRC.
Yeah.
The thing about vernier calipers is that they last longer because they're like just sliding solid blocks.
Yeah.
But like
they're
it's
so hard
very
to read.
hard to get good at reading them.
Yeah, like I can't.
Not
we have like one person on our team that's good at reading them. Like I can read it.
Vernier pretty quickly, but I mean I do like a lot of vernier reading anyway, and that's just for like micrometers. I wouldn't recommend it for like FRC teams when digital and dial calipers are really all you need, especially if you're operating at like this budget level.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. So we're out of what you need to start. Oh, is there anything else?
Did we talk about impact drivers at all?
We didn't. Impact drivers are nice. We just bought one this year. We haven't like actually received it yet. There are, if you have like a nice enough drill, they can pretty much work as an impact driver whenever you need it. But if you're dealing with like some of the cheaper drills, then a separate impact driver is probably a good idea, especially for like building the field and like wood stuff.
Impact drivers can have like 3 or 4 times more torque So they're a lot better for. Again, if you're building a field elements, you can drive in screws a lot easier, especially the longer screws.
Yeah.
It saves time. Also, doing things like tapping the churro bolts into the churro shaft, that sort of thing. But you do have to be really careful because you can actually like break the heads off bolts and things if you're using an impact driver.
Yes. You could also do that with a an Allen key, but that was bad. I broke the head off of Allen key bolt and not an Allen key, like a bolt inside of a Versaplanetary this year. So that was bad.
We are going to have to go a bit
use
faster if we want to get through everything.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so medium precision. The next thing. So this is the one tool that everybody yells at my team for not having, and that's a bandsaw. Vertical and horizontal, they both work. Horizontal, like I think, is more suited for metal, right?
Well, okay, horizontal bandsaws are nice because they have the automatic down feed, but Prepper C, I don't really see the point because
just
like
get a vertical.
yeah, because vertical bandsaws let you do like complex contours and stuff, which is like really really useful. But when you have a horizontal bandsaw, I mean, you're basically just slowly cutting like metal to length, which you can do with the hacksaw. It's really what I see the biggest use for horizontal bandsaws are is like cutting like thick stock, cutting big things that like you wouldn't normally want to do by hand or with like a chop saw.
They're nice for
But, like,
rectangular stock too.
Big rectangular stock mainly.
Yeah.
Like I've cut like big like rounds with it before, and that's useful. But I mean, for like most applications, I just like the vertical one better.
Yeah.
All right. The next thing, which is also really really important, is a drill press. So yeah, like you can get a really cheap like benchtop drill press for like $100. That's like a really good purchase, but eventually you do want to get like a full like stand up like full size drill press or two because you will use it a lot.
It's good for getting accurate holes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's like bearing
Usually-
holes, like doing that by hand is a little like bad.
Yeah, bigger bandsaw or bigger drill presses, like a lot of times they perform better than like the smaller tabletop ones. But you know, both work.
Yeah, you could tell with like some of the tabletop ones you have a lot of drift.
Yeah.
And they're not that much more accurate than just a normal
Yeah.
drill.
It varies though. We own like 2 big floor standing ones and then 2 small tabletop ones. One of the tabletop ones, which we just bought last year, is total junk and nobody uses it. The other one is like really nice, and then of the 2 standing ones, one of them is really nice, one of them is total junk.
Yeah.
I mean,
The other
brand
thing,
actually matters a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah, definitely. The other thing that matters with drill press is how you actually clamp stuff on. Some of the smaller ones are actually easier to clamp stuff on. With our big stand-up one, we actually have a 2-axis vise for it, and that saves us so much time. So if you don't have a mill, then like buying a 2-axis vise for that like $100, it's a good purchase.
Mhm.
Okay. The next thing is a belt/disc sander. So this can save freshmen's arms everywhere. They don't have to do everything with a file. You still want to buy files. The same thing with you still want to buy a hacksaw even though you have a bandsaw. You still want to buy a hand drill even though you have a drill press. Those are not substitutes for any of this. But yeah, belt/disc sanders can save you a lot of time.
I think we can all agree they're just like good for smoothing and like fine work.
Yeah. They're also good for wood. So
Yeah.
Next thing is a chop saw, so that's cold saw. So we have so instead of having a bandsaw, we have 3 chop saws. So we have one that's considered a miter saw. So like chop saws are generally when people say chop saw, they're usually referring to like a metal version, which has an abrasive disc instead of like a single metal sheet, like a metal disc. We have a miter saw for wood. We just bought one that's like good for any material. It's like a special. It's like the Evolution Pro or something like that. And then we also have an abrasive one that's really good for steel. So chop saws are more dangerous than other tools. Not as dangerous as table saws, which by the way is a good purchase if you're building fields. Table saws are really dangerous, but they are more dangerous. They make precise cuts. They're not too expensive. So
yeah. There's also a thing called a cold saw. So cold saws are quite expensive.
Yes.
But they're a lot safer than like a chop saw, because it's a slow spinning blade. It's sort of like a bandsaw in a way.
That's like the right way to cut aluminum, a cold saw.
Yeah.
But like 2 teams have them.
The difference between like having a bandsaw and having a chop saw is that vertical bandsaws can only handle a certain length of material usually, certain like length and width.
Yeah.
Chop saws have no such limitation. They usually you can cut anything up to like 6 or 8 inches in diameter, and I mean, any length you want basically. So those
Yeah.
that's what we use the chopstick for, is cutting like big 6-foot lengths of 2x1 to size.
And it's a lot easier to go straight because you're cutting everything at the same time, whereas a bandsaw you actually have to push it. You want to use a post, but still it could be bad. The next thing is a plastic bender. So we talked about this already.
The thing we make with nichrome wire and like a C channel and all that junk.
Yeah, you could also buy them. They're not that expensive.
Yeah.
The next thing is a drill doctor. If you dull a lot of bits, so like dull bits can actually be very dangerous. As I think there was a picture on Chief Delphi like a little while ago where someone like lost a finger or something, or not lost a finger, but like really hurt themselves with them.
Yeah, I've been scratched up by dull drill bits kind of a lot. We have a drill doctor in the wood shop. It's fairly useful. The things cost about like $120, so if you get one at a discount, it's probably a better buy. But if you find yourself dulling like a lot of bits, then maybe it's for you. Generally, you probably don't need one.
Yeah.
So on our team, we were actually cutting a piece of conduit with a dull drill. It got dull while cutting the conduit because it wasn't suited for that, and we actually ended up catching the piece of wood on fire, which was nice.
Wow.
But yeah.
So the next thing is really useful for every game with a ball, and that's a bench grinder. So
Shooter.
A lot
That's
of
your
people,
shooter right there.
yeah, exactly. A lot of people use these for shooters, but they're also really nice for like making. I think the thing we use our bench grinder the most for is making shaft keys. So we'll actually make shaft keys out of key stock for like sim motors. So you could obviously buy them, but they come in these little tiny baggies, and you buy them, and the next day they're nowhere to be found in your shop. So like we use our bench grinder a lot for making them. And they work just as well, so yeah.
It's also nice for hiding like 2-ball autons if you have
Exactly.
those.
Yeah.
So you need that outer. If the outer work shot isn't working, just buy a bench grinder. Yeah.
Yeah, thing about bench grinders, I have a cheap $20 one in my garage. It makes like a lot of noise and a lot of like rumbling. So, I mean, a cheap one's okay, but like nice like $300 ball grinders, like it's an investment that's worth it if you actually use it a lot.
The other thing is when you're using a bench grinder, use gloves, okay? And also use a face mask if you have them, because stuff goes flying and will hit your face, and it's hot and it'll burn and it'll hurt.
Yep.
So now we're into high precision tools. So
I think
oh,
we might want to skip to doing the CNC stuff first, because FRC guy did ask a question on Chief Delphi about, or like on the thread about like CNC mill versus CNC router versus CNC plasma and lathe versus mill.
Okay.
So we may want to skip to CNC and then come back to like the rest of high precision.
Totally. Okay. So this is a really good question, because if there's anything that annoys me more, it's when people just say CNC and they don't know what they're referring to. Okay, there's not a single CNC. A lot of times what people are saying when they say CNC is a CNC mill, but there's a lot of different CNC machines that are really good for FRC. So the two main ones, or three main ones rather, are a CNC mill, a CNC router, a CNC plasma cutter, a CNC water jet cutter, where all water jet cutters are CNC, so you really don't have to say that. And I guess, yeah, that's it, right? Is there anything else? There's also a CNC lathe, but
Yeah.
I mean, you really don't need one of those. So they are used for different tasks. So a water jet cutter is really nice because it's a lot faster than all the other ones. Okay, well, there's really fast plasma cutters and really fast mills, but like for the money, if you can get, or not a money, you don't want it. There's only one team with a water jet cutter, but okay. Deviating. Water jets are really nice for fast stuff. Like you can even like a lot of people have water jet sponsors, but you could even just pay for the service, and just get like all your parts done in like a couple hours. They're fast. They're pretty precise. They do tend to like oversize holes, so I think the trick is in CAD to undersize them a little bit and then use like reamers to like get them to size with bearing holes and stuff. But CNC water jets are really nice, but again, you probably don't have the money for them because
the main problem with water jetting is you get there's like a taper.
Yeah.
So you can get a tilted head water jet cutter. So if you've got a sponsor or you're getting parts sent out, see if they can do it with a tilted head water jet cutter, because then that can eliminate the taper that you'd sometimes see.
And the other thing is they make a really terrible surface finish. So it's like this sandy, like gritty finish, which inspectors hate. So you will have to like sand it after with a hand file.
If the finish matters to you, then yeah, you need that.
Yeah. The next thing is a CNC mill. So this is probably gonna make the nicest finish, right? Out of all of them, the plasma cutter will probably make the worst finish. But CNC mills are pretty expensive, but you can get, like CNC add-ons for benchtop mills I've seen. There's also like, just simple stuff like power feeds, which helps. But CNC mills are really nice for a lot of stuff. They're generally a smaller work like area than like obviously a water jet cutter, a router, a plasma cutter. So like for like really small, really precise parts, CNC mills are like really nice. And they don't have the same issue as water jet cutters where they can oversize holes. They're generally like really good for like having the really good precise stuff.
Usually you can get one of those in house, especially like a small CNC router.
So like Tormac, I think makes some of like the more affordable-ish CNC mills.
Yeah, Tormac is generally at the entry level like CNC machine. I think it's around like $7,000 for the basic package, which isn't bad. It's actually like a pretty nice mill, especially for FRC. And then they have a bigger version that costs like a bit over $10,000, I think.
Okay, so the next thing is the CNC plasma or like CNC laser cutter. I don't have much experience with those, so if anybody wants to speak on them.
I think they're a bit different for each other. So CNC plasma refers to like the plasma cutters, which I don't like that much because they tend to cause a lot of heat deformation in your parts. So if you have like a large plate and you try to plasma cut it, it does bend upwards. And because the nozzle is very close to the plate, oftentimes you might have to do these kinds of things in like 2 operations. I know one team had issues with that like a couple years ago with cutting a belly pan because they weren't able to cut a belly pan in one go because it was long. Lasers,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
So lasers are like a lot better. I think I find them to be a lot faster than water jet cutters. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's just because like people are usually cutting softer materials with lasers. So I know 254 used it for prototyping with their wooden stuff this year, and they had a lot of success with that. Let's see. But the thing about lasers is that although they're not as expensive as water jets, they're usually like $6,000 plus. So a lot of times it's a better investment just to go for the CNC over the laser, but it really does vary.
And then the last one, which is probably the cheapest out of any of this, is a CNC router. So we just bought a CNC router. There's entry-level ones like the X-Carve and Shipoko or Shipiko or I don't know.
Shipyoko.
We just bought one and I don't know how to pronounce it. But yeah, so they will work. They're not great for aluminum, but they'll work.
I think Shipoko can do up to like 1/4 inch.
Yeah, so
like,
that's
good enough.
It's not gonna do depth cuts, I think it's called, where it just dive cuts, where it dives right in and just like mills away. It's not gonna do that. It's gonna slowly get it slower, more and more in. So Alistair had to leave, by the way, so that's why he's gone. But yeah, they're pretty nice because you can get them for like I think we've spent like $1,500 and we got a fully loaded CNC routers from I don't remember the company, but yeah. So CNC routers are the cheapest. They're not as powerful or as accurate as like nicer CNC mills, CNC routers, and CNC lasers. But yeah.
A big shortcoming with a lot of the like smaller CNC routers or like CNC routers in general is that unless you like invest like kind of a lot of money, they tend to be like weaker than like a mill of the same price. Does anybody remember the Velox? Velox was the one that what was it? Robochair and Cheap Delphi and a few other teams have really liked. So that's definitely an option if you're looking to CNC routers.
And then those are like $7,000, $10,000, and you can get a pretty nice one. And then with CNC routers is you can make your own. So I know like 971 did that, and they just made a really nice CNC router. It probably costs not that much, probably a couple $1,000s, and they could basically make.
Wait, 971 CNC is like, that is nice. Like that was way more than a couple $1,000s. Like I'd estimate that thing to be like well over 10,000.
I thought they made everything though themselves. Like
they assembled the parts, but what they did was they bought like very high precision ball screws.
Oh, okay.
They bought encoders. Like I believe they were running their own software on it at some point, and then they switched. Then they brought in like a specialist or somebody to like fine tune the software for them. It is like a really nice machine. So right. I mean, building your own CNC router, you're probably not going to get as good results.
Austin couldn't tune the software himself, man. What's going on here?
Apparently not. I mean, I still have my doubts about that, but yeah, that's what they say. Okay.
All right. So yeah. Okay. Apparently more expensive, but yeah. That's pretty much everything CNC. Oh yeah, lathes. Oh yeah. So he wants to know. I guess we could talk about this. We'll go back. So we'll dive back up to what we were going to talk about with high precision and stuff. So we have a couple things. So 3D printer. I think you could probably get by obviously without a 3D printer. some 3D Hubs is a really good resource because you can get stuff printed for like a couple dollars. Some schools actually just straight up have them, and there's like a lot of schools actually have them in the schools at this point. Libraries sometimes have them, and they're like used for free. But if you don't have access to one, they are really nice, and you can make some interesting stuff. There's like there's a lot of support for FRC and like the 3D printing community, and FTC is even more. But like you can go on stuff like and whatever. What's the thing that what's that website for?
Thingiverse?
Thingiverse, yeah.
Thingiverse.
And just look up FRC, and there'll be a bunch of like really useful things. There's like the little wire inserts for Robo Rios, camera mounts, like low impact stuff, and it's custom made already for you. And then of course you can make whatever you want. So yeah. Oh, you can also build one. We had bad luck with that, but some people have.
A good option there, I think, is the Prusa i3, which is relatively cheap and something that we use.
Yep. So then there's also like printer bots, like 3D printers. It's not as simple as like there's one brand that is the best. There's a lot of brands, a lot of price points. You can get really terrible 3D printers. You can get really nice ones. So yeah. Next thing is a mill. So I think what they call it, Non likes these better than lathes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of options for mills.
Yeah. Like if you go to like any site that sells mills, like even like Grizzly, right? They have like tons of options, like 30 plus.
Yeah. Generally, if you go on like Chief Delphi and ask, oh, what mill should I get? Everybody's gonna be like, get a Bridgeport or a Bridgeport clone. Very few teams can afford new Bridgeports, but if you're allowed to buy off of Craigslist, you could generally find one for like a little over $1,000. I've usually seen them go for, and like on point, like right there,
Yeah.
like.
It depends on your area. I know that like kind of like in the western United States, but like not California, you get like really cheap machines. So you can get like mills and lathes like under $1,000 for like really nice Bridgeports and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in California, especially, it's very hard to find good Bridgeports. So if you're like kind of in the Bay Area like me, you're kind of out of luck.
Well,
But
I mean,
if
the
you
issue
find-
is, you used to be able to find a lot of Bridgeports in California, but then 1678 became a team, and RoboChair just snatched every single one that came on the market.
All of them.
So
Along with
yeah.
the shopping cart of bowling balls, that was like right on the list. Buy out all of the Bridgeports. Like soon enough, like a year's time from now, we're gonna see 1678 branded mills that just RoboChair just buys and then refurbishes for you.
It's gonna happen. But yeah, one thing to know with mills is like you have to budget a lot for tooling. So like, oh yeah, great, I got a $1,000 mill, and you're gonna have to spend half of that on tooling now because there's a lot of stuff you have to buy. You have collets, you have drill chucks, you have end mills, you have face mills, you have a nice vise. There's a lot of stuff, and also like measuring tools and things, DROs, and
Once you move up into the high precision like mills and lathes and stuff, it's time to invest in a solid pair of like dial calipers or even vernier calipers and like that kind of thing. You can get by with a digital caliper on a mill, but it's really you're wasting the mill. It's better off to get like a good branded like digital one. I have a 12-inch Mitutoyo caliper that I got for like $30 on eBay, and that's like good to within like a thousandth of an inch. And it's been like that for like a year now.
And
Well,
yeah. So the other thing you're gonna want, we talked about fractional drill bit sets earlier on a day. A lot of times with mills, you might want like letter drill bit sets as well. I think that's the correct way you have to call them.
Yeah, the most common set that like people use for machining is the 115 piece set. That includes all the number sizes from I think like 1 to 60, plus all the letters from A to Z, plus all of the fractional sizes in 64ths from 1/16 up to half an inch. That's the set that we use at school, and it's like so nice. Basically, it lets you do any kind of tap clearance or exact size for any size like screw or hole or whatever. Unfortunately, they're really expensive. So once you get your mill, if you want to get like an actually good drill set, it's like $300. So you're better off just sticking with your fractional set and then like maybe purchasing a few numbers and letters that you need. Because drill sets are like super expensive for some reason. I don't understand why.
I don't know why either. They're really hard to. I watched how it's made on drill sets, and like there's a lot that goes into making them. But yeah.
That's true. Yeah.
The next thing is a lathe. So a lot of people, again, on Chief Delphi will be like yelling at you to buy one right away, and like this is like the nicest precision, like the first precision tool you should buy. And there is a lot of stuff you can do with them. So the first thing is there's a lot of options. So unlike like a mill, everybody knows in like the world that like a Bridgeport mill is the best mill. Like buy a Bridgeport, like at least manual mill. Whereas lathe, like there isn't that single brand, single type. like mill, like don't buy round column. You want like dovetail, but like lathe, there's no single one that's like better. So well, there is better ones, but there's not like the best.
Okay, so lathes, it's like you know the ones that are worse. Okay, you just know which ones are like better.
Yeah.
You know the ones that are better because they're not the worst ones.
So, generally, Grizzly is kind of what people will point you towards for the budget stuff.
Yeah, the thing about lathes is that like Grizzly or Harbor Freight and all that, they all just buy from like the same shop. I think what's it, like the SIG mills, like SEIG, those SIG lathes, those are the ones that like everybody sort of like gets them from.
Yeah. So
it's really nice for using like mag encoders and stuff like that. You definitely need to look for that.
Yeah.
Other things like attaching like circlips, things like that. Mill is very lathe is very
making
useful.
Hammers. Yeah. How would you make the hammers?
Yeah.
But the other thing with the lathe is they are still expensive to tool up. Not nearly as expensive to tool up for like a mill, but like there's still a lot of stuff you need to buy. Like you want to buy a quick change tool post, because that will save you like a lot of time. You need parting tools and stuff like that. Boring bars, and milling attachments. You can buy milling attachments. So.
Yeah. I don't know about the milling attachments on lathe because usually those things run in like the $200 range. At which point you might as well just keep on saving and just get an actual mill, because milling attachments they're not good. Like they're okay, but they're really not what you want.
Yep. All right. So the next thing we could probably skip because we kind of already talked about it, but yeah, CNC routers / mills are really nice. So like X-Carve, Chapocos, Detormax, in people's shops, just Velox. These are like the ones like those that was basically these are kind of the machines that like you can buy and it's really nice for like a lot of stuff. One thing
we already talked about all the CNC stuff, right? So
one thing to keep in mind though, with the X-Carve is it doesn't actually use like normal CAM software. You actually have to put everything into like Illustrator and save it as a vector file to cut. So it's like really weird. It's not made for like real like what we do. It's made for like hobbyists in their tool like in their like. It's like made for like people in their houses. So yeah, just know that's a thing. Yeah, I guess that's. Oh yeah. So with all these precision tools, you can probably find it on Craigslist. It's gonna be a lot cheaper, and a lot of tools like mills and lathes, not really CNC routers, but they're gonna be really nice used ones on the market.
Yeah. With lasers, if you see like a cheap one on Craigslist, probably should avoid it. Because what I've heard is that what they do is they run the laser until the laser tube is burned out, then sell the laser for like $3,000, $4,000, and then it's up to you to find like a $4,000 replacement tube. So if you're buying like a used laser or a water jet or something, there might be something like bad with it. So just watch out for that.
Yeah. Basically, like you could sometimes find decent CNC mills that are used and CNC lathes. I've seen some like Has stuff in our area, and like. You really can't go wrong with like a Has mill, but like it's still really expensive. So yeah.
If you have a machining mentor, it makes a lot of sense to go on Craigslist to get like mills and lathes because they can check all the stuff that like is important. But if you don't have a machining mentor, I recommend staying away from Craigslist because like you're kind of like then you don't know what you're looking for and you might end up with like a really bad deal.
And a lot of people like can't buy stuff on Craigslist because they're through schools. So
a lot of people. He says a lot of people. It's just Sam.
No, it's not just me, alright? It's not just my team. I just say a lot of people to make me feel better, alright? Yeah, so how useful is precision machining? So this is kind of like, I'll call this an after show topic. I'll still put this in the normal show though. So like, yeah, I think precision machining is really nice because like you learn a lot, like students learn a lot that like they'll use in industry. Like industry doesn't really do a lot of work with drill presses and hacksaws. A lot of the work is done with CNC mills, CNC lathes, like CNC stuff in general is done a lot in industry, but like learning the manual stuff first will give you a better appreciation for the CNC stuff, and you'll know a lot more than like your fellow engineers in the workplace because they never like played with the manual mill, but you did for 4 years in high school. So there's a lot of student learning benefits with like precision machining, and it's also really good for like competition parts. So, yeah.
Having done mill for like three years, although really it's been like 6 years of like milling because like I spent so much time doing it. It's changed like everything about how I think about what I'm going to do. because like when you're designing, when you think about like how is this going to be made, like instantly you just start chucking stuff out the window and then you start bringing in new things. So like last year I spent like so much time machining because things were very poorly designed. Sort of they're designed to be like precision machined. Everything was, and then this year everything was made out of like tubes and stuff, so it was super fast.
Yeah.
I think that yeah, as a student at FRC, you have that like unique opportunity to be able to machine things that you designed and use them on a robot, and that was like that's been like a game changer for me personally.
Yep. So let's see. You wanted to talk about why you like mills better than lathes? It looks like.
For FRC, mills are just a lot more useful. I find myself using the mill a lot more than the lathe. The primary things that we use the lathe for is like spacers and like snap ring grooves, which you really shouldn't be doing on a mill, but like you can. If you mess with it a bit, I've done it before. But the mill, it's just a lot more useful because most of what you deal with in FRC is like 2x1 plates, that kind of thing, which you can't really deal with on a mill. Drilling hole patterns, you can't do that in a lathe either. So that's just why I like the mill more, because it just gives you a lot more options. Sort of.
Yeah. And
They're
you
also
can use a
about the
mill.
same, except for tooling. Tooling mills are like way more expensive.
Yeah, and you can use a mill kind of as a drill press a lot of times. Like, you want one that could drill as well. And it's a lot easier to do like just like monotonous drill press tasks with a mill, where you're like sliding it over a little bit, drilling, sliding over a bit, drilling. And that's really nice with a mill because you actually have like a moving coordinate system.
The nice thing about the lathe is that everything's cheap. Like you can buy like tool bits and stuff for like $2 each, which is nice.
Yeah.
But that's like the main thing that I like about the lathe.
Lathes are fun too.
Yeah, lathes are really fun to use. Yeah.
What else can you do? And yeah, CNC routers are really useful. If you can get like a really nice one that can do aluminum really well, like you are
Let the
golden.
right?
Yeah, like it is like that is like all you really need, and you can like win a world championships with like that one CNC router. Like it's your stuff right there.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
Whatever you're gonna say, you can say.
No, I was gonna say you probably also a lathe is nice, right? But one thing that you probably should use it for, or that other teams use it for, you could probably substitute it with something else. Like a lot of teams use it to like make spacers, attach like circlips and things like that. If you just use like shaft colors instead, you can kind of play in for there. But like there's a lot of things that can be substituted from what you would use like an actual like lathe to do. Like you could 3D print that spacer or just get like stock.
For the last like 2 years, my team has had like a pretty non-functional lathe. Like we call it a lathe, but it doesn't make smooth cuts and it's not accurate at all. So I've been using the mill to do a lot of tasks I normally done on a lathe. And we've actually, like last year's robot, tons of milled parts. And I think on the entire robot we had like one lathe pulley, and that's only because we wanted to use like a 25mm wide time belt. Like you can get by without a lathe really easily, but getting by without a mill is like very expensive. From like what I've seen with like Vex parts and stuff with VersaFrame, not having a mill to me seems more expensive than not having a lathe.
All right. So a lot of the stuff you can get sponsors for. So there's a single team that has a water jet in house, and they're from Hawaii. So
Well, hold on. I think there's more. Some teams own the Omax water jets, which are like 50K, which is cheaper than the one that 359 bought.
I thought only 359 had one.
No, there's other teams that have them. It's just
Okay.
like I'm not sure why, because like there's like a lot of overhead involved.
Yeah. So I don't know why
Yeah.
359 has. They spent like over $100,000 on their water jet.
200,000.
Was it over
200,
200,000?
more than 200,000. Yeah, once they got everything done.
So I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't buy like a really baller CNC mill. That's what 254 did this year. They bought like
They might have already
crazy-
had one.
Yeah, probably. So move to Hawaii is like the moral of that story. But like, yeah, I mean, like a lot of times like a water jet sponsor is really nice. A CNC mill sponsor / router sponsor is really nice, and then a sheet metal sponsor, so someone that can bend the sheet metal is also really nice. Like if you're like Alistair over there, you can just get sponsored by Innovation First International, IFI, and just get all your sheet metal done. But like if you're like everyone else, then you should probably find a pretty good sheet metal sponsor. I mean, like you look at teams like 148 and like 1114, they don't do any of their sheet metal work in house really. They outsource everything.
Yeah, we had a sheet metal shop for the last couple of years, and yeah, it's actually really helpful if you know how to use it.
Yeah, and like we have like a finger brake, which can get like just basic cuts done, and they're like not that expensive.
Yeah.
So.
Well, we have one of those too, but like we don't usually use them for sheet metal. We usually use those just for bending plastics and stuff, because like they can't really do like 1/8 inch aluminum and stuff like that.
Ours can do 1/8 inch aluminum.
Wow. Well, you have a nice one then.
Yeah, we do have it. I don't know why. But okay. That's basically it. If you have any questions, contact RoboChair on Chief Delphi. He's not any of us, but he's like really good at machining. I've talked to him on the phone for like hours before. Like, he'll help you, and like he knows a lot more than we do.
He's like the auction master. Like he got a shopping cart full of bowling balls for $5. Like, you don't just do that, okay? A shopping cart full of bowling balls would have been like 50 for anybody else, but like RoboChair gets it in 5, okay?
I love how it's all about the bowling balls. Like, he's gotten like 5 Bridgeport Mills, where apparently you can't find a Bridgeport Mill, but like the bowling balls, that's why you shouldn't talk to him.
Yeah. He's also like offered to like do things before, like for other teams, so he's like a really nice guy. So yeah, questions, ask RoboChair.
Yeah, so do that. Like, okay, you could talk to us like really basic stuff, but if you're going to like talk about us like tooling mills and lathes and stuff, like he's a good person to talk to. And he knows a lot about broaching too. So like, if that's something you want to get into, yeah. And of course, if you're really desperate for safety goggles, you can always contact Dick Shant. And
that's 2 boxes, man.
I think the last thing we have is if you need like spare parts, like buy it. So have a lot of spare parts, standardized on screws, and yeah, that's basically it for Tooling the Shop. Thanks everyone for watching the 16th episode of F4. We've been doing this for more than 16 weeks now, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you guys next week, Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time.
See ya.
See ya.